Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Mudiraye. Before reciting this Srimad Bhagavatam, which is the very means of conquest, one should offer respectful obeisances unto the personality of Godhead Narayana, unto Nara Narayana Rishi, the supermost human being, unto Mother Saraswati, the goddess of learning, and unto Srila Vyasadeva, the author. Nastaprayeshu abhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtiki. By regular attendance in classes on the Bhagavatam and by rendering of service to the pure devotee, all that is troublesome to the heart is almost completely destroyed, and loving service unto the personality of Godhead, who is praised with transcendental songs, is established as an irrevocable fact. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. So it's very important for us to chant these two very wonderful verses from Srimad Bhagavatam. And today it gives me great pleasure to know that we are all concentrating on the glories of Srimad Bhagavatam. When we say we are installing Bhagavatam, what we actually mean is we are installing Krishna, because Bhagavatam is non-different from Krishna. Bhagavatam is known, in the Shastras as the Mahapurana, and it is actually considered to be the greatest and the king of Puranas. It is known as the purest of the purest, and therefore it is known as Purana Amalam. Sometimes people ask, what is the meaning of Puran? Srimad Bhagavatam, Prabhupada actually speaks about that. So it's important for us to today understand a few aspects of Srimad Bhagavatam. And so in the next 45 minutes to an hour, let us try and understand Srimad Bhagavatam. We always hear about Bhagavatam, we read shlokas from Bhagavatam, we hear Bhagavatam programs in the morning, and you know that there's a lot of emphasis that Srila Prabhupada placed on Bhagavatam. So it's good for us to understand today different parts of Bhagavatam. So we understand, hopefully by the end of this time together, we will all become very inspired, and we will then look at Bhagavatam from a deeper and more appreciative angle. Srila Prabhupada in the first canto, 6th chapter, in the 11th verse, in the purport, Prabhupada makes a very important point about what a Puran is. Generally speaking, when you talk about the Western concept of Puran, or even for those who are not familiar with Vedic science, normally people say Purana means, some mythology or some stories. So they say, that something, if it's Shiva Puran, Garuda Puran, well, it's stories, about different personalities. But Srila Prabhupada in the purport to 1611, he says very clearly that this Srimad Bhagavatam is a repetition of history. It is a repetition of history. The only difference is this history occurred hundreds of millions of years ago. In other words, it is ancient history, but it is recorded history. So sometimes people ask, the question, if it's recorded history, history tends to be very chronological, isn't it? Why is it when we read Bhagavatam, it doesn't appear to be chronological? The reason Prabhupada writes is, in this recording of history, only the most important factors of history are picked up and recorded in this transcendental literature. So this is first point we should understand. Never we should think that Srimad Bhagavatam is fictitious. It is not. It is the recording of the history of all the great devotees and their dealings with Krishna. This is very important. Another thing that's really important is sometimes people say Srimad Bhagavatam is a Purana, but it is not as high or highly placed as, say, the Vedas or Vedanta. Vedanta means the end or the cream of Vedas. But that also is refuted, because in the 12th canto, 13th chapter, I think 15th or 14th verse, there Shukadev Goswami declares to Parikshit Maharaj that Srimad Bhagavatam is the essence of all Vedanta philosophy. Very important. It is the essence of all Vedanta philosophy. And anyone who has felt satisfaction from this nectarian mellow, they will never be attracted to any other literature. And you can test this. Once you have started studying and reading Bhagavatam, it is very natural, Prabhu said Matajis. You won't want to study any other literature because you find every aspect of life is discussed in Bhagavatam. So remember, Bhagavatam is Vedanta. And then in the 12th canto, again in the same chapter, maybe one verse after that, 15th or 16th, just as the Ganges is the greatest of all the rivers, Lord Achyutya is the most supreme of all deities, Shukadev Goswami says, Srimad Bhagavatam is the greatest of all Puranas. So this point we should be very clear. Now, generally, sometimes people say if Srimad Bhagavatam is a Purana, do Puranas have a certain style? Is there a certain way the Puranas are written? And this is not just a Purana, it is a Mahapurana. Now, Srimad Bhagavatam has 18,000 verses. It's not 800 verses, not 700 verses. Bhagavad Gita is considered very small next to Bhagavatam in terms of verses. 18,000 verses. But in these 18,000 verses, there are 10 topics of interest. Very important. There are 10 topics of interest. And in these 10 topics are divided into 12 cantos. Cantos are actually another way to say chapters, broad chapters. So actually Bhagavatam covers a variety of areas of interest. And that's why it's considered Mahapurana, the greatest of all Puranas. It covers universal creation, for example. So if anyone wants to know how actually this entire universe is created, it is in Bhagavatam. It also covers what we call secondary creation. Within this huge creation, we look at the secondary creation done by Brahma, and that is covered there. Bhagavatam covers, the astronomical and geographical details of this universe. So even if someone wants to find out all the astronomical calculations of atom, the sun, the time, Bhagavatam covers that. Bhagavatam covers all aspects of the Lord's mercy, how the Lord protects his devotees. Very important topic for us. Bhagavatam also tells us the nature of every living entity and every living being which have been formed in this world, and their inclinations also. Bhagavatam gives us a historical breakdown of all the kings from all the various dynasties, not just in Kali Yuga, but Dwapara Yuga, Treta Yuga, and even Satya Yuga. Bhagavatam also tells us the signs of God, all the various incarnations of the Lord, his devotees. Bhagavatam tells us how to come to the stage of liberation and what is our permanent identity. And finally, Bhagavatam also speaks about how this universe is destroyed. And after everything is given in the 9 cantos of Bhagavatam, then in the 10th canto, which is considered to be a summary and the essence of all Bhagavatam, you will find how Krishna is received as the ultimate shelter and how the pure devotees of the Lord, they relate with Krishna. The summum bonum of Srimad Bhagavatam is also given. So this is a very important point. So there are actually all the major topics is all given in Bhagavatam. So sometimes, you will hear people saying, oh, Bhagavatam is just sentimental, whimsical activities of the Lord and devotees. No, there is so much factual basis that's really, really there. And that is a very important thing. The other thing about Bhagavatam that's also very important for us to remember is Bhagavatam is very unique, even as a Purana. Why is it unique? Normally, all the Puranas, they have about 10 topics also. But all the 10 topics in these Puranas, they always stand alone. In other words, they are all contained chapters. They talk about one topic and there's no relation to the other topic. But Bhagavatam has a very unique feature. All the 9 topics of Bhagavatam are specifically there to make us qualified to reach the 10th canto of Bhagavatam. And all the 9 topics are described specifically in relation to each other to glorify the last and most important topic of Bhagavatam, which is Ashrayaha, taking shelter of Krishna. So you see, that is why Prabhupada told us that we should read Bhagavatam systematically. Because as we read systematically, Bhagavatam is purifying us. Bhagavatam is qualifying us also. How nice this point is actually. The other feature of Bhagavatam is also, in other Puranas, you will have the story of Vritrasur. You all have heard of Vritrasur, isn't it? how Indra came to kill this demon Vritasur. But previously, he was actually a great devotee known as Chitraketu. In the other Puranas, where there is any mention of Vritasur, it is stated only very superficially they describe him. They don't describe him a lot. And they never describe him as actually being a devotee. But it is stated by our acharyas that Srimad Bhagavatam is the only Purana which describes Vritasura's true nature as a devotee. Something we take for granted because we read about it very openly in Srimad Bhagavatam, but it is considered unique. And it is also considered unique because in other Puranas, there is never the emphasis that even demons can become devotees. But in Bhagavatam, that emphasis of the Lord's mercy, of how our demonic consciousness can move from demonic level to transcendental level, is very much emphasized in Bhagavatam. That is why Bhagavatam is glorified, Prabhus and Matajis, because it gives us great hope and faith in the Lord. It's a very positive Purana, actually. My Guru Maharaj used to say Bhagavatam is PP. It's Purana, but it's very positive. So if you remember it as a positive Purana, we all become very happy when we read Bhagavatam. So that is another great uniqueness of Bhagavatam, actually. The other thing that our acharyas tell us about Bhagavatam, which is unique, is that no other Purana describes Krishna and the Supreme Personality of Godhead in 3 different ways. Okay, this is very unique, actually. Generally speaking, we all know the Vedas, right? The Vedas, they normally instruct in the way of a parent educating a child. So if you study the Vedas, you find that the style is always like a parent educating the child. When you read the other Puranas, it is a bit different. The mood is a friend educating a friend, like a friend talking to a friend. And whenever you read some poetry, these kavis, then what happens is they speak to the audience like a lover speaking to a beloved. However, our acharyas tell us that in Srimad Bhagavatam, it is very unique. In Bhagavatam expresses itself in all 3 ways. There are many aspects of Bhagavatam where Krishna is giving us instructions and the devotees are giving us instructions, like the Vedas. There are many parts of Bhagavatam where devotees are talking to each other in a very friendly way. And sometimes even the Lord is speaking in a very friendly way. And the third aspect that's very nice is that when you read about all the pastimes of the great devotees in Vrindavan, especially, the pastimes of the gopis in Krishna book, you find that the gopis always saw Krishna with the eyes of a beloved. So you see, Bhagavatam is so all-encompassing. It covers all the different ways in which the other scriptures actually describe the Supreme Personality of Godhead. One last point that's very important in terms of understanding the uniqueness of Bhagavatam is actually also given by one of the great acharyas who speak and comment on Bhagavatam, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur tells us that Bhagavatam is Bhagavatam is described in 5 different ways. First, it is described as a lamp. Second, it is described as the sun. Third, Bhagavatam is very often described by acharyas as Mohini Murti. You may be thinking, oh really? How is Bhagavatam and Mohini Murti the same? And sometimes Bhagavatam is described as desire tree. And last, Bhagavatam is described as a tasty fruit. So when you look at Bhagavatam, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur tells us, Bhagavatam is known as Adhyatma Deepam. In fact, Shukadev Goswami is described by Suta Goswami in the first canto as Adhyatma Deepam. And whole Bhagavatam is described that way. Why? Because when you read Bhagavatam, it is like you have just brought a lamp into a darkened area. And this lamp dissipates the darkness in a room. So the lamp of Bhagavatam eradicates the darkness of ignorance in our hearts and our lives. So, both wonderful families, Prabhus, Matajis, you have brought Bhagavatam to your house. And for all of you also, I know you all have Bhagavatam. And even if you say, I don't have book Bhagavatam, well, you have Veda-based Bhagavatam. You have online Bhagavatam. Do you really think Krishna is immune or Krishna will not reveal himself through technology? Krishna is supreme. Nothing is beyond Krishna. Just by opening Veda base, you have welcomed Bhagavatam also. And the moment Bhagavatam comes into our lives, it lights up. I'm seeing all of your faces. You are all looking very bright. Why? Because you've taken up the spirit of Bhagavatam, Bhakti. That is why you're looking so bright. You're not bright because in Minneapolis it's morning. You're bright because of Bhagavatam. That is why you're bright. So always remember, whenever things are bad, always remember Bhagavatam is Adhyatma Deepam. Don't be stuck in the darkness. Go immediately to Bhagavatam, and Bhagavatam will light up your life like a lamp lights up darkness. So this is first point. The second nice point is Bhagavatam is nicely described in the pages of Bhagavatam as Purna Arko, Punar Arko. That means it is like the sun, as brilliant as the sun. Very important point, that Bhagavatam gives us. Krishna is so kind that he has come as the sun, as the sun. And that's why in Bhagavatam it is known very nicely that Krishna himself has come as the sun. It is in 1.3.43 of Srimad Bhagavatam. And it is stated there that Krishna is as brilliant as the sun, but he has come in this age as Srimad Bhagavatam. And just like a lamp can dissipate darkness, just see how powerful the sun is. And the sun, it disperses all the denseness of night, and all the mischief and envy. The moment it is exposed in the sunlight, it makes us purified. So this is the nature of the sun. Another point that Bhagavatam is described as is actually Mohini Murti. You all know, right, that the Lord came as a most beautiful lady, as Mohini, because he tricked the demons into giving Amrit back to the Devatas when they had actually got it. And why is it that Bhagavatam is described in that way? The Acharyas tell us that Mohini Murti distributed the nectar to the Devatas, and by doing so, she baffled the demons. And she baffled the demons with her charm, In fact, the demons were fighting amongst themselves when they caught the Amrit. But the moment Mohini Murti came, she was so beautiful and she spoke such sweet words that the demons said, even amongst us we are fighting. We'll just give it to you. And you actually please give it to everyone. Actually, it's a very foolish thing for the demons to do. But Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says that if one is insincere, then Bhagavatam is very powerful. It can baffle you actually. People may think that they know Bhagavatam, but while Bhagavatam is simple, it is simple to those who are simple-hearted. But for those who are demoniac in thought, Bhagavatam like Mohini Murti can be very baffling. It may look very appealing, but if one wants to use Bhagavatam for his own fruitive activities, Bhagavatam will reject that person. That is why we must be very careful when we approach Krishna. If we try to cheat Krishna, we ourselves will become cheated. And it is like Bhagavatam also. That is why our acharyas tell us that Bhagavatam reciprocates with the kind of person who approaches it. Just like Krishna, ye yata mam prapadyante tam sataiva bhajami aham. To the extent, Prabhus and Matajis, that you all surrender to Bhagavatam, Bhagavatam is always available to us. If we are sincere and engaged in devotional service, Bhagavatam is always there. But if you ask someone who is very proud and envious of Krishna, then Bhagavatam is like Mohini Murti. She will baffle you, and she will baffle that person. Have you all noticed how sometimes your young children can read Bhagavatam, Bhagavad Gita, and they understand? Give it to a professor who does not believe in Krishna, and he's baffled by Bhagavatam, and he cannot understand the Gita. Why? Same Gita, same language, but why one cannot understand and one can? This is the specialty of Bhagavatam. This is the glory of Bhagavatam. Because Bhagavatam is Krishna, and to approach Krishna, we must qualify ourselves. And the last two ways to describe Bhagavatam is Nigama Kalpataru Galitam Phalam Shukamukad Amrita Dravasam Yutam. This is in the third verse of the first canto, first chapter. And there, very nicely, Bhagavatam is described as a desire tree. In other words, anyone who approaches Bhagavatam, according to our desire, Bhagavatam will reciprocate and fulfill. If you really desire to serve Krishna without motivation, Bhagavatam will open the doors for you to do it. If you come to Bhagavatam because you want to be scholar, there's plenty of knowledge there. Bhagavatam will give you knowledge. So it's a desire tree actually. And at the same time, it is a ripened taste, ripened fruit, And this fruit that is ripened further because Shukadev Goswami chewed it and gave it to us. Suta Goswami chewed it and gave it to us. Our Guru Parampara chewed it and gave it to us. Srila Prabhupada chewed it and gave it to us. And our spiritual masters have chewed it and given it to us. And that's why it is a ripened fruit. So please always remember, this is the great glory of Bhagavatam. Hmm? So what have we done so far? We have talked about the uniqueness of Bhagavatam. We have spoken about how Bhagavatam is a Puran, but is a very unique Mahapuran. We have also now dispelled the myth that anything in Bhagavatam is not fictitious. Never think something in Bhagavatam is just meant for exaggeration. The moment you think that way, you are denying Krishna entry into your heart. And if you cannot accept it, then accept it on faith. That is life, isn't it? When your mother tells you when you're 5 years old that this is your father, do you send him for DNA test? You don't, isn't it? You just accept what the mother has said. Mother says he's father, you accept it. In the same way, when we want to approach Krishna, there must be some faith. This is a very important point that we must not forget. Mhm. So this is the great value of Bhagavatam. Now we come to another part of Bhagavatam which is important. How is Bhagavatam revealed? This is the point to be understood. You cannot acquire transcendental knowledge. Please remember, when you approach Bhagavatam, you cannot acquire the knowledge from Bhagavatam. That knowledge of Bhagavatam must be revealed. Bhagavatam was first revealed to Lord Brahma. Brahma tried very hard to acquire the knowledge of Bhagavatam. You know what he did? When he was born, he was the first being, right? And it was very dark around him and he was on the lotus flower. And he thought, let me dive into the lotus flower and find out who is the origin of who I am. And so he used his own endeavor and he dived in and he wanted to acquire that knowledge on his own strength. But for so many years he tried, but he could not even see the end of the lotus stem. And finally, frustrated and surrendered and humbled, Brahma came out. And when he came out, he got seated again. And then he began to meditate. And he meditated. His meditation was very nice. His meditation was, let me, whoever you are, who is my creator, who is Paramparayanam, the shelter of all shelters, you please make me understand where I've come from and who I am and who you are. The moment he started looking within himself for the source of the creation, he heard the word tapa, tapa, tapa. And tapa means austerity. And so he sat down and he began with austere penance. He meditated on the source of all sources and the shelter of all shelters. And because of his meditation, Krishna reveals Srimad Bhagavatam to him in Chatushloka, in the 4 seed verses. This is very important. And after Krishna revealed the 4 Chatushloka, and when Krishna appeared before him, he informed Brahma, a very important point in the 3rd canto, 9th chapter, 38 verse. Very important. He said to Brahma something very important for us today. Yat chakartanga mat stotram, mat katha abhyudayantikam, yat va tapasi te nishta, sa esha mat anugraha. Mat anugraha means by my mercy. And this is what he said. Oh Brahma, oh, thank you, Prabhu, very nice. Oh Brahma, the prayers that you have chanted, which praise the glories of my transcendental activities, the penance that you have undertaken to understand me, and your firm faith means nishta, whatever faith that you have in me, please know one thing, they are all considered to be my causeless mercy. So this is very important point, Prabhu and Mataji. What is Brahma saying here? What is Krishna saying here? Krishna is saying that whatever prayers you have chanted, they are coming from me. They are because of my mercy that you are capable of chanting. Whatever tapa that you have done, what is that? That is also coming because of my mercy. And even your faith, the faith that you have in me, that is also my mercy. In other words, everything is revealed by Krishna. So please do not approach Bhagavatam as something theoretical. Don't approach it like you approach for it like a degree that you study. No, Bhagavatam has to be revealed. The Quran was revealed. The Bible was revealed. All transcendental knowledge is always revealed. And in the purport, Prabhupada says there's only one qualification for this revelation. In other words, when we come to Bhagavatam and study Bhagavatam, what is the only qualification needed? voluntary endeavor is the only qualification for spiritual perfection. This is Prabhupada's verdict. Material acquisitions of wealth or education are not considered. So it doesn't matter, Prabhu's Mataji's, how much you have studied, how many degrees you have in your name card. It doesn't matter. Doesn't matter what your scores are. But are you ready to come voluntarily with your heart? Do you endeavor to do service for Krishna? If every day we are voluntarily endeavoring to study Bhagavatam, Krishna will reveal that knowledge to us. He will reveal. And this knowledge, that comes from Krishna, it is always transcendental. Please remember this one. The nature of this knowledge is Atma Prasada. In the second canto, third chapter, 12th verse, Srimad Bhagavatam, Krishna, it is very nicely stated by Shukadev Goswami. This transcendental knowledge of Bhagavatam, it has one effect. It satisfies your Atma. That's why it is known as Atma Prasad. You can see, Prabhu has brought up this verse. Look at Atma Prasada Utayatra Guneshu Asanga. See? So when we take up Bhagavatam, see the translation. When you study Bhagavatam, three things will happen. This transcendental knowledge will completely suspend whatever waves and whirlpools of material modes. In other words, for 1 hour today in Minneapolis in the morning and night in Singapore, and wherever you are in Chennai and Abu Dhabi and wherever, welcome to all of you. Wherever we are right now, whatever material waves, and whirlpools there are outside, right now, because we are glorifying Bhagavatam, they have become suspended. Complete suspension. That is why we are all peaceful. That's why you're all smiling. Because it's all suspended. It's outside. The moment this Bhagavatam stops, then all the waves and the whirlpools will come. So sometimes people ask, then how to stop this? The point is very simple. Always be with Bhagavatam. Whenever you have spare time, just bury your nose in Bhagavatam. If you have spare time and you're not with Bhagavatam, chanting or devotional service, you'll fight. I guarantee you. Either you'll fight or someone will fight with you. And if someone fights with you, you'll fight with them. Because this is how the waves of the whirlpool are. So Bhagavatam is very powerful. And this knowledge that you get from Bhagavatam, it is self-satisfying. Atma Prasad means we don't wait for others to satisfy us. You just sit with Bhagavatam and you realize that you don't need anything else. You become very self-satisfied. Otherwise, in this material world, the biggest problem in life is to be satisfied. Isn't it true? How many times we have tried to satisfy our near and dear, and we realize it's like hitting your head on a wall sometimes. Because no matter how much you try to satisfy them, there's always something that's not up to standard. And sometimes even if you stand upside down on your head for 30,000 years, still they will say, this is very nice, but there's something else that I require. There's no end to it. There's just no end to it. But when you sit with Bhagavatam, you realize that you are not hankering for something. And those who are hankering, they also stop asking you for anything because they say, this is a madman. He's sitting down with Bhagavatam all the time. And normally when you're a bit mad, people leave you be. So there are so many advantages to being with Bhagavatam. It is Atma Prasad. And it is so self-satisfying. It will make us transcend all these difficulties. So always remember, the effect of Bhagavatam is given very nicely by 2.3.12 of Srimad Bhagavatam. But always remember, don't be proud when you read Bhagavatam. We should not be proud that now I have Bhagavatam. Oh, I know 10 verses from Bhagavatam. You know 12, so I have to know 15. No. Because Brahmaji was warned and gently told by Krishna. Remember in 3.9.38? Yes, you prayed very nicely. Oh, wonderful penance. Yes, you have great faith. But I've got news for you. Everything that you think you have done is all my mercy. So actually, what are we? We are nothing. When we come before Bhagavatam, this is how we must become. The other thing that's very important about Bhagavatam, as it comes to mind, is that Bhagavatam has been revealed so many times. It was first revealed millions of years ago from Bhagavatam, from Krishna to Brahma. Some people ask, when was Bhagavatam invented? Or who wrote Bhagavatam? But the answer is very straightforward. Bhagavatam is Krishna and Krishna is Bhagavatam. So if you want the answer, no one invented Krishna. No one gave birth to Krishna. Krishna was here when creation was not here. Krishna is here when creation is here. And long after creation is gone, Krishna will be here. Bhagavatam and Krishna are identical. Therefore, they are actually eternal. This, please remember, Bhagavatam is eternal. Brahma was given that wonderful chance to hear Bhagavatam from Krishna. And then later, Brahmaji created Narada Muni, and he revealed Bhagavatam to Narada Muni. Narada Muni then revealed Bhagavatam to Vyas Bhagwan. And Vyas Bhagwan then revealed Bhagavatam to the whole of this world of Kali Yuga. And yet, at the same time in Bhagavatam, you find parallel, you also hear about Suta Goswami, right? Who spoke to the sages of Naimisharanya, who sat down 1,000 years for a fire sacrifice. And while they were seated there, they heard Bhagavatam. And Suta Goswami repeated it because he heard it from Shukadev Goswami. And at the same time in Bhagavatam, we will hear that Maitreya, another great devotee, he speaks Bhagavatam to Vidura. So you see, there are so many branches, of the river where devotees are relishing Bhagavatam and speaking Bhagavatam. So this is a very important point for us to remember. And now we come to the essence of the relevance of Bhagavatam to us. One very important thing about Bhagavatam that we should remember is that in Kali Yuga itself, how Bhagavatam came to us is very important before we end our time today. Why? Because from the way Bhagavatam came to us in Kali Yuga, we can learn so many things about devotional life. In Kali Yuga particularly, you will remember that Krishna decided to wind down his pastimes. And the Lord decided that he will go back, to his eternal abode. The Yadu dynasty was eventually wiped out. And when the Pandavas themselves heard that Krishna was leaving, they also retired very timely. They installed Parikshit Maharaj on the throne. And of course, Parikshit Maharaj ruled very nicely until one day he was cursed by Shringi Brahmana. At that point of time, Kali was already entering into the kingdom. And at that point of time, Parikshit Maharaj had to sit down to hear Bhagavatam from Shukadev Goswami. But if you rewind it a little bit, you'll find that Shukadev Goswami, who did he hear this from? He heard it from Vyas Bhagwan, his father. And Vyas Bhagwan spoke and spoke and spoke Bhagavatam for so many years because Shukadev Goswami refused to come out of the womb of his mother. He was afraid to come into this world because he realized that if he came into this world which is full of Kali, he was afraid that he would forget Krishna. It was only when he heard the patient recitation of Bhagavatam from his father that he finally came out actually. Now, how did Vyas Bhagwan have so much faith in Bhagavatam? Because he heard it from Narada Muni. Now, what is very important is there is a nice episode in Bhagavatam about how Bhagavatam comes to us and how Vyas Bhagwan himself, has to search his own soul for Bhagavatam. So this is very important point for us to remember. As Bhagavatam came, into this world, we should remember at that time that Kali Yuga was coming in. And that time Vyas Bhagwan sat down one day in his ashram. And as the sun was rising, Bhagavatam tells us, he took his morning achaman and prayers and he sat down at the Saraswati river and he began to concentrate on the Lord. As he concentrated on the Lord, he realized something very important. He realized that in this world, very soon, there will be a lot of discrepancies. There will be a lot of problems. And also, most importantly, there will be so many difficulties. So he knew there would be a lot of difficulties. And he knew that there would be a lot of what we call anomalies. These anomalies will come and they will cause a lot of problems. In the first canto, 4th chapter, 17th and 18th verse, Vyas Bhagwan realized that he could see one very strong aspect of Kali Yuga that was coming. Bhautikanam cha bhavanam. This is very important. Bhautikanam means everything that is made up of matter. So Bhautikana means anything that is made up of matter. And by the way, our bodies are also made up of matter. He realized that Bhautikanam cha bhavanam. Bhavanam means actions. Then he also realized Shakti Rasham cha tat kritam. In other words, Rasam cha means deterioration of material natural power. Tat kritam means rendered by. So the great Vyas Bhagwan realized one thing, that in this day and age, If you are not with Bhagavatam, you will always find that everything around you will deteriorate. This is a very important point. We must recognize that in this world, the nature of everything is that it must deteriorate. And this is what Vyas Bhagwan realized. He knew that. And when he realized that everything was going to be deteriorating, then he thought that something must be done. Something must be done to help these people. Because everything will deteriorate because of the unseen force of time. So what did he do? He then decided to simplify the process of transcendental knowledge. So he took one Veda, which was there and coming from Krishna, and he divided that Veda into four. And then he expanded them. The four divisions of these Vedas were all made separately. And then later, he got the authentic stories from the Puranas, and they became the fifth Veda. Then from the Vedas were divided the four divisions. He then made each great personality into an expert in each of these Vedas. So for example, you have Jaimini, who is an expert in Samaveda, I think. Then you have Paila Rishi, who became expert in Rig Veda, so on and so forth, actually. So he compiled the four Vedas. And then after that, he then started compiling the historical narrations known as Puranas. And after the Puranas were compiled, he then compiled the Mahabharata. And then after doing that, he compiled the Itihasas, which are like subsections of the Puranas. But after doing all this, something still was not correct. Bhagavatam tells us that his mind was still not satisfied. It was not satisfied. He had engaged himself for the welfare of all the people. Just think about it. He had done all this for everyone. And yet Bhagavatam tells us that he was not satisfied. He kept thinking in his heart, why is it that I'm not satisfied? Why is it that I'm not satisfied? And in 1.4.27, he did something very important. In 1.4.27, he started reflecting. Naiti prasida dirdhaya saraswatya state suchahau vitarkayan viviktasta idam chovacha dharmave. Now, this is very important for us when we come to Bhagavatam. There will always be dissatisfaction in our heart. It's very hard for dissatisfaction not to be in our hearts in Kali Yuga. But when we are dissatisfied in our heart, instead of blaming the sky, the moon, our friends, loved ones, family, husbands, wives, children, what did Vyasadeva do? He was dissatisfied in his heart, but he did not blame anyone. He did not find fault with anyone. He began to reflect. He began to reflect. And then he started looking into his heart. And Prabhupada writes a very important point in the purport. The sage began to search out the cause of not being satisfied at heart. Perfection is never attained until one is satisfied at heart. Isn't it true? Until we are satisfied in heart, we never feel we have achieved anything. Therefore, Prabhupada says, you cannot satisfy the heart if you look for it in matter. This satisfaction of the heart must be searched out beyond matter. And Bhagavatam is transcendental to matter. It is transcendental to matter. So what had Vyasadeva done or not done? He had compiled Vedas. He had done everything. But he had not spoken and glorified the Lord. And that's why in 1.4.30, he himself admits, he says, I am feeling incomplete. Even though I'm fully equipped with everything required by the Vedas, still I feel like there is some hollow and something is not there. You see? Tatapi bhatamedhayo hi atma chaivatmana vibhuhu asappanna iva bhati brahmavars chasya sattamaha. And see what he says. I'm feeling incomplete. I'm fully equipped with everything, but I am feeling incomplete. And the last line of the purport is very nice. Prabhupada says in the last line of the purport, Srila Vyasadeva appeared to have lost the clue and therefore felt dissatisfaction. Why I bring this up when we are installing Bhagavatam is because installation of Bhagavatam should not be in the house. It should be in the heart. That is installation of Bhagavatam. Bhagavatam installation means until the heart has Bhagavatam, then there is no satisfaction. If we just see Bhagavatam in front of us and we don't act on it, we will not feel satisfied. Until we touch Bhagavatam and study Bhagavatam and be with Bhagavatam and bury ourselves with Bhagavatam, there will always be a void. And if supposing you're reading Bhagavatam and you still don't feel satisfied, what does it mean? It means that while we are studying Bhagavatam, we are not practically applying Bhagavatam. We're just reading it because we have to read it. Oh, it's my quota for today, let me read. Just like, oh, I have to see Krishna now, let me see Krishna. Oh, I have to offer Krishna something, but actually I'm hungry. So very quickly do all the offering, put it there. I'm hungry. Krishna, you eat 5 minutes less today. Take it out and I'll eat it. That is why we are not satisfied. So this is what Vyasadeva was feeling. He had done everything. Vyasadeva 100 times more qualified than all of us, 100,000 times more qualified. But if he was dissatisfied, then what kind of precarious situation are we in? That's what Bhagavatam is telling us. And now he says in 1.4.31, the key point that we must take home. Kim va bhagavata dharma na prayena nirupitaha priya paramahamsanam ta eva hi achutta priyaha. And this is the point actually. This may be because I did not specifically point out the devotional service of the Lord. There you are. Which is dear both to perfect beings and to the infallible Lord. Now let's hear what our founder Acharya has to say. The dissatisfaction which was being felt by Srila Vyasadeva is expressed herein in his own words. This was felt for the normal condition of the living being in the devotional service of the Lord. Unless one is fixed in the normal condition of service, neither the Lord nor the living being can become fully satisfied. This defect was felt by him when Narada Muni, his spiritual master, reached him. See, how nice. Vyas Bhagwan is none other than Krishna playing the part of the great literary sage, the incarnation of the Lord. But he was playing a part and he's teaching us an important thing. Even Vyas Bhagwan surrendered to a spiritual master. And therefore, to study Bhagavatam, we must always study it in parampara. Even if we are not formally initiated, we must accept Srila Prabhupada. We must accept his spiritual authority. And we must always be loyal and chaste to him. It's not that, we are just putting Prabhupada in a supermarket and we say, this Guru I like, Prabhupada I like, this person I like. Before marriage, you may see a few girls and the girls may see a few boys. All that is permitted before marriage. But after marriage, you are just with one person. You don't go to your mother after that and say, I'm married, but I'm thinking of number 2. Number 1 would have been better. Or maybe number 5. You don't think that way. So when we take up Bhagavatam, who has given us Bhagavatam? Srila Prabhupada has given us Bhagavatam. Is it not our duty to become loyal and chaste to Prabhupada? Isn't it? That's the most decent thing. Even in material world, chastity is a great virtue. Yet in spiritual world, we flounder it. We go here and there and take something here and take something there. We like to eat khichdi, and our spiritual life is also khichdi. That is not spiritual life. Spiritual life means we may have many uncles. That's good. But we have one father. That is spiritual life. That's how you also live your lives. You don't let 10 uncles tell you something and ignore your father and mother. You don't do that. Father and mother will always be father and mother. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada is our father, Srila Prabhupada is our mother. And that is why Vyas Bhagwan, he was feeling dissatisfied because he had not been chaste to the Lord. And chastity to the Lord means serious rendition of devotional service. And because he did not glorify the Lord and glorified everyone else, his lack of chastity was what disturbed him. And that is why we also must take this point when we want to install Bhagavatam in our heart, to become chaste to it, to build our lives around Bhagavatam, to make Bhagavatam the center of our house and the center of our lives and the center of our hearts. That is actually Bhagavatam. And because Vyasadeva was sincere, he was repentant, and because he was genuinely feeling that he had committed a mistake, and because he was repentant, Krishna revealed in his heart, how he felt. What happened? Immediately Narada came. And when Narada came, Narada took one look at Vyas Bhagwan. Vyas Bhagwan had not communicated his feeling, but he took one look at him, and immediately he asked him this very important question. Parasharya Mahabhaga Bhavata Kachit Atmana Paritushyati Sharira Atma Manasa Evacha. In the 5th chapter, 2nd verse, he asked him, Vyas Bhagwan, are you satisfied by identifying with the body or the mind as objects of self-realization? Why did he ask that? Because he could see, and because he's spiritual master, he could also know the heart of his disciple. So he was asking him this question, that are you really satisfied? Because you are talking, all that you have created is talking about many things except Krishna. So are you satisfied? And Vyas Bhagwan then tells him, all that you tell me is true. I'm really not satisfied. And you know something, my dear Narada Muni? Really the truth is, I'm now questioning the root cause of my dissatisfaction. You are a man of unlimited knowledge. You are coming from Brahmaji, who is himself self-born. Please now tell me, what is the cause of my dissatisfaction? And the same thing that he asked before, because Vyas Bhagwan had asked a very important question in 1.431, isn't it? He asked, Kim va Bhagavata Dharma? He said, it must be because I have not glorified Krishna. That same point is now endorsed, repeated, and confirmed by who? It is confirmed by his spiritual master. And he says, Sri Narada Uvacha, Bhavata Anudita Prayam, Yasho Bhagavato Malam, Yenai Vasau Natushyeta, Manyeta Darshanam Kilam. And the translation is very important. You have not actually broadcast the sublime and spotless glories of the personality of Godhead. And that philosophy which does not satisfy the transcendental senses of the Lord, it is considered worthless. So we should remember today, Prabhus and Matajis, what is this instruction given by Narada, who is the greatest pure devotee of the Lord. When we take Bhagavatam into our lives, when we study and read Bhagavatam, the completion and excellence of having Bhagavatam in our life is that whatever we read and study, we should broadcast. That is what we should do. That's why a family that studies and discusses Bhagavatam is a family that stays together. A family that puts Bhagavatam in the center is a family that stays together. If we speak of any other philosophy that doesn't satisfy Krishna, then it will not satisfy us. But if we speak Bhagavatam, it is non-different from Krishna. Therefore, it will definitely satisfy Krishna. This is the most important point that we should take back today. So in conclusion, the question we must ask ourselves is the same question that was posed, the same statement that was posed by Narada. Narada then told Vyas Bhagwan, you are dissatisfied because you have not broadcast the glories of Krishna. And therefore Vyas Bhagwan sat down, listened to his spiritual master, and then he compiled Srimad Bhagavatam. He put it down as we know it today. And that Srimad Bhagavatam was spoken by Shukadeva Goswami, spoken by Suta Goswami, and given to us today by Srila Prabhupada. This is a very important point. So to conclude, we may ask ourselves, now that we know the greatness of Bhagavatam, now that we know that whenever we are not satisfied in our lives, it is because we are not with Bhagavatam, then what should we do in our life practically? Bhagavatam means behavior. That's what Bhagavatam means. There's no point installing Bhagavatam and our behaviors do not change. Whatever we were yesterday, we are yesterday. But today, we must now become the best devotees we can be. This is Bhagavatam. Always remember, Prabhus and Matajis, that Bhagavatam is really about behavior. The whole of Bhagavatam is so powerful because every devotee is a living Bhagavatam in Bhagavatam. Every devotee lived their lives as Bhagavatam. And how did they live their lives? They were always submissive. They were always ready to cultivate humility, tolerance, and gratitude to the Lord. You see, Bhagavatam, consistently, every devotee is like that. Every devotee molded their lives in such a way that Bhagavatam became their culture. Every devotee had a heart-to-heart relationship with Bhagavatam and Krishna, not a theoretical relationship. Every devotee was very sincere in Bhagavatam. Every devotee in Bhagavatam showed us that they required no material qualification. Sudama, very, very poor. Gajendra, elephant. Hanumanji, basically Vanara, of monkey descent. Prahlad, very young boy. Kunti, a widow and helpless basically. Ajamil, full of sins. Even Chitragupta could not keep up with him. Vritasur, a demon come to destroy Indra, but became a perfect, pure devotee actually. So you see, Bhagavatam doesn't require any kind of qualification. All it requires is our heart. So we should always remember 2nd canto, 8th chapter, 4th verse. I leave you with this verse because this verse tells us how we must approach Bhagavatam. Shranavataha Shraddhaya Nityam Granatascha Swachestitam Kalena na atidirgena Bhagavan Vishate Hriti. When we hear Bhagavatam, we should hear Bhagavatam regularly. This is very important. And when we hear regularly, it doesn't mean once a year. Once a year is also regular, you know. Once in 2 years, very regular also. But if you see the word to word, regular means nityam. And nityam actually means always, right? So nityam means one who must hear it always and regularly. In other words, we must always be systematic in our study. Not that today I feel like reading, I read. Tomorrow I don't feel like reading. That's not the way. The second thing that's very important is after hearing Bhagavatam regularly, we must take the matter of studying and relishing Bhagavatam very seriously. Granatascha swachestitam. Take it seriously, Prabhus and Matajis. And how do you take this matter seriously? By your own endeavor. We must always work hard for Krishna. Bhagavatam doesn't come just like that. It comes when Krishna sees, ye yata mam prabhadyanti, right? To the extent of your endeavor, Bhagavatam will be there. And when we do these two things very nicely, then what happens? Then na ati dirgena, kalena na ati dirgena. In a very short time, actually, Krishna will manifest in our hearts very, very quickly. Very, very quickly. This is the point we have to understand about Krishna. So please remember one thing. Bhagavatam is not something very difficult, but Bhagavatam is a science. It is a science of how we behave. It is a science of always having faith that Bhagavatam is always Krishna. And when we want to study Bhagavatam, always remember, Tat Shranavan. You please hear very carefully about Bhagavatam. Supatan. After hearing, you recite. In other words, you repeat. And then after hearing and repeating, Vicharana Paro. You please study, reflect, and ingest. And then you can put it into practice. This is how Bhagavatam is. And one last point that comes to mind, my Guru Maharaj always used to point out this nice verse from the 5th canto, 18th chapter, 26th verse. 5:18:26. One day, he made me study this verse. Antarbahischa kilalokapalakai adrishta rupo vicharasi urusvanaha sa ishwarastvam ya idam vashenayan namna yatada rumayim narastriyam. The meaning is very nice. In that verse, it is stated Krishna is like a puppeteer and he controls this entire universe like a puppeteer controls the dancing dolls. And then he says nicely, Adrishta Rupo Vicharasi Urusvanaha. In other words, Krishna You are in the heart of everyone as supreme witness, but you're outside as well. But there's a certain word that is very important, vicharasi. Vicharasi means wandering. So my Guru Maharaj said that Krishna, when he was in this world, when he walked in Vrindavan, and even now he's in Vrindavan, what does he do? Does he take the MRT, the train, the subway? No. Does he take a bus? Does he take a car? No. He just walks, isn't it? Always he's walking because he's a wanderer. And Maharaj said in this Bhagavatam, if you read the word to word, you'll find that actually he's also wandering. Where is Krishna wandering? He's wandering in all the shlokas of Bhagavatam. In every single shloka, Krishna is present. He's a wanderer. His lotus feet are on every single syllable of Bhagavatam. And therefore, the moment you chant Bhagavatam, Krishna is wandering on your tongue. And if you practice Bhagavatam, Krishna is wandering in your heart. Jai Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki. Jai Srila Prabhupada ki. Jai Srila Gurudev ki. Jai Gaur Premanande. So I wish both families all the best in your transcendental study and practice of Srimad Bhagavatam. Today is a very auspicious day. Bhagavatam has not come by accident. Bhagavatam has come because we are all dissatisfied with material world, and we recognize it. And we recognize that the root cause of dissatisfaction is we have yet to be connected with our Supreme Father. Do it with Bhagavatam, and you will always be self-satisfied, always be happy. In your most difficult times, just turn to Bhagavatam. Any shloka you open, if you're desperate, that shloka is for you. And when you read that shloka, something in that shloka will surely be for you. If you want, after this Zoom call, you put down and you go and open your Bhagavatam, and whatever message that is there will either address what you are feeling or will advise you what to do. Thank you, Balram Prabhu, for organizing this. Hare Krishna.
Thank you so much, Prabhu, for wonderful class, Prabhu. And just want to inform you this: all the kids who are joining today in the video, they are all our Sunday morning Bhagavatam students.
Very happy to meet all of them.
Padri, Gargi, Nishu, Mitansu, Prahlad, and Aditya, Rayans, and all these kids join every Sunday. Prabhu, please give your blessings. So they will continue.
You have all my prayers. I pray that Srila Prabhupada, and our spiritual masters will bless you all with taste for Bhagavatam and pure devotional service. That is the best thing we can pray for.
So, Prabhu, if you have just 5 minutes, maybe if anybody wants to ask 1 or 2 questions, devotee,
sure.
Please welcome forward. Please, if you have any questions, please ask. Please unmute yourself to ask question. Manohar Prabhu, you want to ask something?
Hare Krishna Prabhu, Dhanwats Prabhuji. Prabhu, you nicely delineated that and the importance of Bhagavatam and importance to study it regularly. Sometime back, Prabhuji, you had also said how to study a particular verse, like taking out 2 points from translation and purport. So it was kind of nice. I'm trying to do that, but would you like to reiterate that so that we can understand it fully and how to do it, and how to study Bhagavatam basically?
Actually, we should organize one whole session just for that, because it's so nice to take one sample verse and just go through it, and I can share how,
Sure.
How Maharaj taught us to study Bhagavatam. But in essence, very quickly, I can tell you that the best way to study Bhagavatam is when you look at the shloka, you please chant the shloka first. Because remember, Krishna is the wanderer, right? So by chanting the shloka, he's there. He's non-different. There's one lecture by Prabhupada, where Prabhupada speaks about Bhagavatam. I will share that excerpt of lecture with Balram Prabhu, maybe by tomorrow, and he can share it with the congregation. That lecture really, Prabhupada just only talks about why we should study Bhagavatam. And it's amazing. But he says you just chant and remember some shlokas because they are non-different from Mahamantra. So the starting point of studying is don't skim the shloka, just chant it. Chant it lovingly, chant it with humility, chant it with happiness, because it is Krishna. After chanting the shloka, please do not ignore the word-to-word transliteration. Please read each of the word to word and see the meaning. It becomes very important because each word, Prabhupada has translated it not from a scholastic point of view. He has translated it from a spiritual point of view. So all the messages of the shloka is actually found in the word to word. Then go to the translation and read the translation very carefully. All translations of shlokas have only two things. They will start if you look at the shloka at the beginning, right, it's a statement. In other words, the shloka is always made out of two things. First thing, the shloka will tell you how to achieve something. It will tell you what is to be achieved. And in between the shloka, it will tell you how to achieve it. So for example, in the shloka I just quoted of 284, in that shloka, Krishna is saying, no, Shukadeva Goswami is saying in that shloka, how Krishna manifests himself in our hearts. That is the aim of the shloka. Now, how he does it is given in the shloka in between. He will manifest in our hearts very quickly in no time if we study Srimad Bhagavatam regularly. Regularly means Nityam, always. If we take it seriously and if we put in our own endeavor. So all these 5 things become the qualities to achieve the aim of the shloka. You see? So except for the descriptive portions of Bhagavatam, all the teaching portions of Bhagavatam are always like this, always like this. Then you must look at the translation carefully and see whether the translated words are the same as the literal word-to-word transliteration. When they are not, the literal translation will give you more deeper meaning to the translation. And that is where the verse becomes alive. And then you read the purport. So by the time you have finished this part and you come to the purport, Prabhupada then wraps it up very beautifully to tell you what is the verse about. So that in a nutshell, Prabhu, is the way to study Bhagavatam. It's very exciting, very relishing. And every time you study it that way, it's like unlocking treasure. I hope that's helpful, Prabhu.
Yeah, very well, Prabhu. I'm eager to, looking forward to the next session, Prabhu.
Maybe we'll do that. Yeah, it's fine. That'd be nice.
Committed, Prabhu. Yeah, you yourself committed for that next session.
Oh, I did that, huh? Yeah. Trust Balaram Prabhu to catch me there. Yeah.
So, Prabhuji, Hare Krishna, this Uday.
Uday Prabhu, Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji. So, just one question, Prabhuji. So, one of the common questions that I came across from my friend circle and other people when we go and explain about this devotional service, Bhakti Yoga, right? So the so-called the kind of intellectual people, the thing is that, hey, how can I really understand the scriptures? Because the kind of Bhagavad Gita, we know it has spoken by Krishna to Arjuna, but for the people like us, it has been seen from the eyes of Sanjaya, right? And for example, if we take the Srimad Bhagavatam, although it was given by the so it came to us through the Suta Goswami, although it has been kind of recited by the kind of Sukadeva Goswami. So their question is, or question that come across is, what is the guarantee that they haven't manipulated it before passing it on to the others, right? So how can we trust the scripture is authentic, that it came as it is? Right. So if we can clarify that, I think it will be useful, Prabhuji. Thank you.
Very simple answer, Prabhu. Tell them to test it. That's all. And if they say, why should I test it? Then tell them a person who tests something will get to find out whether it works or not. He's infinitely more intelligent than someone who just dispenses it and not realizes that it may have some value. It's a very difficult argument to refute, Prabhu. That's all.
Yep.
Whenever I've used this with the most brilliant minds and the most difficult of people, the only reason why they will deny you at that point is because of their egos. There will be no other logical reason for them not to test it. But I find that when you approach them in a loving manner, and if you build friendship with them, if they ask these questions and you explain to them that I also had similar misgivings, but I tested it, And the most important thing is that I found that this knowledge, in order to understand it, it has to be experienced. And if something is manipulated, then it should come out sour and poisonous, and it should destroy your happiness. But if that knowledge, which is supposed to be allegedly contaminated, if you test it and you find that it is working on an experiential level of happiness and peace, then it is safe to assume that that knowledge is still maintaining its purity. Does that help, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji, that's definitely the best answer I kind of heard so far. So, Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Prabhu. Very good question.
Prabhuji, if you have a minute more. So
Yeah,
I
a minute
kind
more.
of mentioned that even the Quran and Bible have been revealed, but
Yes.
I'm confused with the statements. If you can clarify that would be helpful.
In the Quran and Bible, there are statements to state that God actually states that when the Prophet Muhammad or when the prophets, in the Old Testament, how did they receive their knowledge? They received it not by studying. They received it because they were qualified enough and God revealed that knowledge to them. So this knowledge that is given when it comes in descending in from top to bottom, when it comes in the descending order, that knowledge is considered revealed. It is not that they sat for an exam and they passed it and then they were awarded a qualification. They may have been very advanced scholars, but finally that knowledge, like Krishna revealed to Brahma, had to come from the source himself. So actually the purity of the scriptures are there, but how we want to use them and to what purpose we want to use them, that is not unfortunately revealed. That is very often misused. But the knowledge itself is transcendental. Is that helpful, Prabhu?
Yes, Prabhuji. Thank you. Nice.
Hare Krishna. Hare
Thank
Krishna.
you, Balaram Prabhu. Thank you to all the devotees, and thank you to the devotees who joined us from so many different parts of the world. So nice to see. I think Vaishnav Seva Prabhu is there also from Rajkot.